All right, we got it started here. I think we're going. I think YouTube is getting the live signal that it needs, and I appreciate everybody who's already checking in here on the live stream for the Panther-Lair Post-Game. It's Saturday night, few hours after the end of Pitt's 45-24 win over Rhode Island at Acrisure Stadium. Appreciate you all being patient for a few hours. Had to attend a crucial matchup of the Broncos versus the Buccaneers in the third and fourth grade division of the Mount Lebanon Youth Football Flag Football Association. So, I mean, that was a tough game, 7-6 game. I got to tell you, the Buccaneers hit a big pass to open the game, first play of the game, and our heads were spinning, and they got the extra point and thought this is gonna be a long game, but Broncos defense tightened up, ended up getting a touchdown of their own, just couldn't convert the extra point, ended up losing the game 7-6. So I had to do that after the Pitt Rhode Island game, and so decided we'd start the post-game show a little bit later than normal. Normally we'd be going, within an hour or so after the end of the game, maybe 2 hours after the end of the game. We had to push it back a little bit, but I appreciate it. I figured everybody would want to hang out at night anyway, rather than I think it's fun. You can hang out, watch college football throughout the day, and then around 8:30 fire up YouTube and join the post-game show to talk about Pitt beating Rhode Island by 3 touchdowns. And it was, seeing the reaction, right, throughout the game and after the game, for the couple hours after the game, and reading the message boards and social media and all those things. I mean, the reviews have not been glowing. It hasn't been a well-received victory in a lot of areas. There are a lot of people who are just saying, look, a win is a win, all right? And they beat a team by 3 touchdowns. It was a pretty comfortable win, and I would agree with that. I don't think this game was ever really in question. I think you were letting that weird part of the Pitt fan psyche get the better of you if you started to get concerned during this game. I don't think Pitt was ever really in danger in this game. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 real drives, and they scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns, offensive touchdowns. 5 offensive touchdowns and a field goal. They punted on the first drive, and they had the turnover on downs that first, when they had the ball to open the fourth quarter. So, I mean, Rhode Island was never going to stop Pitt's offense. No matter what happened on the other side of the ball, Rhode Island was never going to stop Pitt's offense. And, I think if you let yourself really get concerned during this game, you were sort of giving in to that darker, deeper part of the Pitt fan psyche. But it was a game that they were in control, really, from the start. And I don't think they were never really in danger of losing this one. Now, did they light it up the way that Pitt lit it up against New Hampshire last year, 77-7? No, they didn't. They gave up 24 points. They only scored 45, and one of those, 7 of those 45 came on a punt return. It was a blowout, but not a blowout the way that last year's FCS game was a blowout. But overall, I think they were able to do a number of things. And I think the first thing we have to look at here is what we think the goals were for Pitt in this game. What we think the objectives were. What did Pitt want to do aside from winning and staying healthy, which they mostly did. We'll talk about that in a second. I got the distinct impression that there were certain things they wanted to work on in this game, almost treating it like a practice. And I sort of asked Pat Narduzzi about this after the game, and he said, no, they were taking what the defense gave them. And so obviously there were opportunities to run the ball, which they were able to do. They did it effectively. They ran the ball for, what ended up being, 271 yards. That's a pretty effective rushing performance. And, and obviously Izzy Benicanta had a, $177, had another huge game, 4 touchdowns. We'll talk about him plenty tonight, I'm sure, and certainly over the course of the next week. Their number one objective, as far as in the game on offense, they wanted to run the ball. And then I think you look at all the screen passes where more than a third, probably close, I don't know if it was half, but we'll see what the numbers end up being. More than a third of Keaton Slovis's pass attempts, and he attempted 27. Probably, certainly more than 9. I think it was probably 12 or 13, maybe even 14 of his pass attempts were behind the line of scrimmage. Screen passes, swing passes, whatever you want to call them, those different kinds of sideways passes, ultimately is what they were. And it almost felt like a point of emphasis, a focal point of we need to work on this a little bit more. Pro Football Focus said that through the first 3 games, Kedon Slovis had thrown exactly 3 passes behind the line of scrimmage. And obviously that's just the first game and a half. He didn't play in the second half against Tennessee. He didn't play at Western Michigan. But it wasn't, and I think you could find a lot of people who were saying they didn't throw enough screen passes through the first 3 games. They should have thrown more screens. Why didn't they try and throw more screens? Well, that seemed to be a point of emphasis in today's game. And maybe it was because they hadn't done a lot of it yet. They wanted to see if they could iron those out and get into a rhythm with those throws. I guess. I don't really understand, why they wouldn't try to attack deep, try to push the ball a little bit more. Kedon Slovis said after the game that Rhode Island was trying to take away some of those deep passes, and I would still want to challenge them. I would still want to try and go after them. I would still, with the way they were running the ball, I would want to use play action and try and attack deep and take shots the way they're going to need to do over the next 8 games. And everything that happens in this game, everything that happened in this game is inevitably going to be viewed in the context of the next 8 games and what it means for those ACC games. And I think we fall into a trap here of thinking that what we saw here today is how they want their offense to look when they take on Georgia Tech or Virginia Tech or Carolina, so on and so forth, down the list of 8 games that 8 teams they're going to play here. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think this was the model for what they want to be. Sure, if they can run the ball for 271 yards and Izzy Abanikanda can run for 177 and they can possess the ball for 35 minutes and they can, convert 10 of 14 third downs and, so on and so forth, and just, protect the ball. I don't think they had any turnovers. They had 2 fumbles, but they didn't lose any of them. They didn't throw any interception. If they could play a game like that, sure. And look, I'm all for it because the game lasted almost exactly 3 hours. 3 hours and 1 minute was the total time elapsed, which is great after the first 2 weeks were 4-hour games. And even last week with the run-heavy approach at Western Michigan was still 3.5 hours. I'll take 3-hour games all day. If they can do that, I'm sure they'd love to. I don't think they believe they'll be able to do that every week against ACC teams. And I think they'll be planning to take a different approach and not try to play this way. Here's the thing with the offense, though. Okay, for all the different complaints that people want to lodge, and Cignetti's somebody says he's trying to run the Woody Hayes 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense, or they're trying to be like Nebraska in the 90s or 80s. It's not that. I think Frank Cignetti has enough in his offense that he wants to be able to do a lot of different things, and he's planning. He plans to do a lot of different things, and then you see what's going to work, and you kind of stick with that. I think that's his approach. Kedon Slovis said after the game, he thinks their offense is very multiple. He thinks they're able to do a lot of different things, and we only saw a couple of those things today, but he believes they can do a lot of different things. Here's my issue with the offense right now, as we sit here at the end of September, and maybe this feeds in, or this kind of is part of what Slovis was saying. Maybe I would say this, and Pat Narduzzi and Frank Cignetti would say that's great, that's what we want. But I don't know what their offense is. I don't know what their offense wants to be. It's not just that they don't just want to run the ball. Okay, you can go back and look at the stats, and I did this with someone on Twitter today where I looked at the first 2 games, just West Virginia and Tennessee, 2 games against Power 5 opponents. And if you look at run-pass ratio, count up all the runs, count up all the passes, but you adjust so that all the sacks and the quarterback scrambles are actually counted as passes. They go in the official stat book as runs, but those were plays that were called as passes. If you move those over to the passing plays, and you take out the kneel downs because they also count as runs, you end up with something through the first 2 games, something like 83 pass plays and 59 runs. All right, that's a significant imbalance in favor of the pass. All right, so it's not just that their offense is just running all the time. At Western Michigan, yes, it was running all the time, and I think there's a very good reason for that. They had a redshirt freshman quarterback who hadn't played football in 3 years. That's not the offense. That was the offense that night. That's not the offense that we're going to see all season. And even this game here, so I mean, just the raw numbers, they ran the ball 41 times and threw 27 passes. And that's more or less, I think, accurate. Keaton Slovis had one run, which I think it was a scramble. So you're talking about 40 runs and 28 passes. They'd probably love it if they could play every ACC game like that and score 45 points and win the game. They're not going to be able to do that in every ACC game, and they know they're not going to be able to do that in every ACC game, and they're going to have different plans, probably plans that better resemble what they did, particularly against Tennessee. So what's confusing, what's difficult is, though, coming back to my original point, is I don't know what this offense is. We saw one thing against West Virginia, where there was a lot of running, right? And then we saw something different against Tennessee. Actually, we could even go in that West Virginia game. First half, lots of under center plays, lots of running. Second half, a whole lot of shotgun, almost all shotgun, spreading it out, throwing the ball a little bit more. Tennessee, they come out, and certainly in the first half with Keaton Slovis, they're in the shotgun a lot. And they're kind of throwing it. It looks more like the second half against West Virginia. Then Slovis gets hurt, and you have to go with Nick Patty. Situation changes. They actually really kind of changed the way they were making things look. They went under center more with Patty at quarterback. Then you get to the Western Michigan game. You have the Nate Yarnell experience where it's something completely different because you are struggling to, you're trying to break in a new quarterback who, again, hasn't played in a game in 3 years. And so you're changing the offense. You're doing something completely different, not just changing it to adapt to the defense and take advantage of what the defense is giving you, but changing because of the personnel you have available on offense. And then you have this game. And I don't know what the plan was. I suggested earlier maybe the goal was just to develop the run and work on some screen passes. But I don't know it looked more, and I said this on Twitter, it looked more like a practice than an offensive game plan in terms of the approach. And so we come out of September, finish the non-conference schedule, and I don't really know what Pitt's offense wants to be. Is it going to be this chameleon that changes week to week based on the opponent and the available personnel? I mean, to some extent, that makes sense. You're going to have to do different things based on the kind of defenses you're going to be facing. You do have to change your approach. But I don't know the identity of this offense yet. And again, maybe Pat Narduzzi, if I said that to Pat Narduzzi, maybe he'd say, well, that's good. I don't want you to know. I don't want us to have such an easily identifiable identity or such an easily accessible identity that defenses can pick up on and game plan for. I want us to be challenging and difficult to plan for and different and have a lot of different things that we can do. But kind of part of the problem of not really seeing an identity in this offense is I'm not really sure where their sort of reliable attacks will come from. All right, so they ran the ball. Obviously ran it really well. Izzy Abanikanda put up big numbers against Western Michigan, put up big numbers against Rhode Island. He put up good numbers against Tennessee. I don't know that they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage and open the holes in the running game against ACC teams that they did against Western Michigan and Rhode Island. Now, I don't think the ACC, particularly the Coastal Division, is full of run defense juggernauts. I ran down the stats in the 3-2-1 column on Friday. Entering this week, out of Pitt's 8 remaining opponents, there were only 3, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and Miami, that ranked inside the top 50 nationally in run defense. And out of the other 5, out of Georgia Tech, Louisville, Carolina, Virginia, and Duke, I think 4 out of those 5 or 3 out of those 5 were outside the top 100. So there's some questionable run defenses in this conference right now. And Virginia Tech was like number 3 at midweek, and then they played that West Virginia game on Thursday night and dropped to like number 24. So even they, have fallen off a little bit. And so you're not going to face great run defenses in the ACC and in the Coastal Division, plus Louisville and Syracuse. You're not going to face great run defenses, but you're going to face more resistance than you saw from Western Michigan and Rhode Island. They're going to want to establish the run. We know that is part of the identity of the hoped for identity of this offense. Just finding balance. But I'm just not sure. I'm not sure how effective they're going to be able to be. I don't know if they're going to be effective enough that they can rely on it without supplementing it with a very effective passing game. And that's the part that to a large extent, hasn't come together yet and hasn't evolved and hasn't developed. Now, they lost a game and a half. Out of the first 3 games, their starting quarterback only played half of that time. And that was probably some crucial time. Playing in the second half against Tennessee, I think Kedon Slovis gives them a really good chance to win that game. Taking Kedon Slovis on the road and playing at Western Michigan, if Pitt was coming out of September with Slovis having played 4 games instead of 2.5, maybe we'd have a better sense of the identity of this offense, even if they had the same game plan today. But we saw, even if they approached today the way that they did approach it, but this came after Slovis had a big passing game at Western Michigan and closed out the Tennessee game throwing well, and they decided just to take it easy and run the ball and throw a few screens today, I think we'd have a different opinion about this offense. But that didn't happen. And so, Slovis threw for 300 yards against West Virginia, throw for 200 in the first half against Tennessee. You think the effectiveness of the passing game is there, but it's literally only 1.5 games. It's 6 quarters. And so I don't know if you can hang your hat on that yet. If you're watching from the outside, I don't know if you can say, okay, they're this team that can attack downfield, and then they're a team that if they come out and you're stacking the box to try to stop the run, they can take some shots to loosen you up with the passing game. And once you do that, they can get the run game going, and then they can hit you with play action. If Slovis played all 3 of the first 3 games, then maybe we could say that. Maybe we'd believe that. But as it is, we haven't seen enough to really say, yes, that can happen. And so that's a difficulty right now. And here's the other thing. To this point, through 4 games, Pitt's wide receivers have not really shown themselves to be better than just okay. And Jared Wayne has been the best of the group, and I think he's played really well, and I think he's a very good player. He's the best Jared Wayne that I know. He's really good at being Jared Wayne, and maybe even to the point where you could operate with him as your number 1 wide receiver. But I think you still need Konate Mumfield to take a big step forward, and you're going to need to get Bub Means involved and effective downfield, which did not happen today. That was not part of the game plan. He had, what did he end up with, 6 catches? 6 catches. He tied his career high with 6 catches for 38 yards. Because it was just screen. Bub Means and Konate Mumfield combined 11 catches for 80 yards. It was like less than 8 yards per catch, 7.3 yards per catch. I mean, that tells you where the passes were being thrown and what kind of plays they were getting an opportunity to make. We need to see Bub Means downfield. We need to see him attacking vertically. We need to see him making those catches downfield to show how much of a threat that can be. You need Konate Mumfield out, moving around, doing a lot of different things, slants and hitches and outs and vertical routes, posts and corners and all that. I mean, he needs to have a full route tree to be as dangerous as I think he's capable of being. And that wasn't the case today. They weren't used like that at all today. And if this was going to be a warm-up game for the next 8, games of the schedule, they didn't get any reps doing that at all. Which comes back to one of the biggest questions from this game. If you were just going to hand it off and throw screens, why play Kedon Slovis? What is gained by playing Kedon Slovis in this game at all if the intention is just to hand it off and throw screens? If you're going to use Kedon Slovis in this game, open up the offense and try to get into a rhythm on downfield passes, trying to get into a rhythm on intermediate throws, on a whole bunch of different types of routes so you guys can get comfortable together in a game. Pat Narduzzi has said it every week. He's relayed the anecdote of how after the first game, Bengali Kamara said, "Coach, it's really different in a game than it is in practice." And and that's true. And so I don't think you need. I think if you're going to go in the ACC and you want to have some reps under his belt for Kedon Slovis, you might as well make them meaningful reps and not just rely on what you've done in practice to get that timing down between Slovis and Mumfield and Means. Those guys are going to be crucial. They're going to have to make plays. They're going to have to be a big part of your offense in the ACC schedule. And this is the way you go into it, just throwing them, 11 screen passes. for 50 yards or 80 yards or whatever it was. You're going to have to do more than that, and it feels like a wasted opportunity here today. It feels like you had a chance to maybe air some of those things out, even if Rhode Island was playing to take away those passes. Use play action. Use play action and take your shots and try to stretch the defense and try to get into some rhythm there. See how those guys are doing with the details on those downfield passes and those longer routes. But they didn't do that at all. And so I just asked, why even play Kedon Slovis? I mean, you guys all heard me all through the week of wondering why of my crusade that Izzy Abanikanda should play very little in this game, which he didn't. He played the entire game and carried the ball 19 times, admittedly for 177 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's pretty good. He also had 1 catch for 19 yards and 49 yards on kick returns. How many of those did he have? He had 3 there, so 3, 4. He had 23 touches, which is about 18 more than I would have given him. I think, after his second touchdown, he could have come out. After his first touchdown, he could have come out. And certainly after his third touchdown, when he had 13 carries for 133 yards, he could have come out then too. But nope, they kept him in all the way until the very end. And I said the same thing about Kedon Slovis. I said there's no reason for Kedon Slovis to play this entire game. As a matter of fact, playing a half probably benefits Pitt because it gives you more opportunity to get Nate Yarnell. How many times am I going to say Yate and Arnell? Well, usually I only get the Yate, and then I realize it, and I come around and I correct it to Nate. But get Nate Yarnell more opportunities and more reps. I just didn't feel great about how this game was handled and how it was approached. The outcome was fine. In the defense gave up 24 points. That last touchdown drive, 96-yard touchdown drive. I mean, listen to the personnel they used on that drive, all right? They opened the drive with Sam Williams, who I don't know if he has ever played a snap in Pitt's defense, ever, in a game. He certainly hasn't played yet this year. Sam Williams, Sean Fitzsimmons, freshman, playing in his first game ever. He ended up having a sack in this game. Elliot Donald getting more snaps in this game than he's ever gotten in his career. Chris Maloney, former walk-on, who has played a little bit. He played more last week because they kept getting defensive ends hurt. Your second team, so that was your defensive line. All, at best fourth team guys. Your linebackers were the second team unit. Tyler Wiltz and Solomon DeShields and Brandon George. Corners were Rylan Gandy and Javante Royal. You're talking, again, probably third team at best, probably fourth team. And then your backup safeties, Javon McIntyre and PJ O'Brien. That was the unit that gave up a 96-yard drive for a touchdown. The main defense, and then we could even look who was on the field when they scored their other 2 touchdowns, really only gave up about 17 points. The defense, I thought the defense was sloppy. I thought they were undisciplined. I thought they took bad penalties. I thought they lost their focus. But overall, other than that, I think this defense still will be fine. I think they'll be okay. The offense, I just didn't understand what the goal was today. I'm all for Izzy Abanikanda padding his stats since I predicted he would lead the ACC in rushing this year, and he now has 479 yards, which I'll have to go check the stats for some of the other guys. He was tied with Henry Parrish and Trayshawn Ward from Florida State, Henry Parrish from Miami. I'm pretty sure, I didn't see the stats, but I'm guessing Parrish, in a loss to Middle Tennessee, did not rush for 177 yards. I'll see what Ward's stats are, but even though I predicted Abanikanda to lead the ACC in rushing, and today's performance certainly helps that cause, I still didn't see a need to use him all that much. Not when Vincent Davis goes 7 for 51 and a touchdown. Sebo Flemister, 4 for 13, not great, but I think the more carries you would have given Sebo, the better he would have done as well. I mean, they were going to be able to run on this team no matter what. Why it needed to be Izzy Abanikanda, I don't understand. Why he continued to return kicks, I don't understand. That's my beef with this game. It's a win. It's a 3-touchdown win. I thought they looked fine. It doesn't change my thoughts about the prospects for the rest of the season. It makes it cloudier, actually, because I don't even know what to expect now. It's not going to hurt them in the rankings. The fact that they only won by 3 touchdowns, I said from the beginning, I said it on the Friday show, the Friday morning Pitt, when I talked about games around the country you need to watch, that I said Pitt's ranking movement is going to be determined more by the teams around them than by the result of their game, unless they lose. And sure enough, 20, 21, 22, and 23 all, or 20, 21, and 22 all lost. 25 lost. And 23, I don't know what's going on with A&M and Arkansas right now. Let's see, my computer says it's halftime. Arkansas is winning 14-13. And so, 45-24 win doesn't hurt their ranking. Doesn't change my opinion about the team or anything like that. I just didn't understand what the goal, what the objectives were on offense. I didn't understand this approach. It makes sense if you do it a certain way. If you take this offensive approach and you do it with Nate Yarnell and Vincent Davis and Sebo Flemister, I get it. You take this approach with Keaton Slovis and Israel Banakanda, makes a little less sense to me. All right, I want to get to the comment section. Everybody's been in the chat, and I appreciate it. Some super chatters. RJCman38 says, defense gets lazy at times. That's coaching. Keaton Slovis really concerns me, not getting better at getting the ball out, throw it away, whatever. Just don't take a sack. Keaton Slovis was not sacked at all today. RJCman38, he was 20 of 27 for $189 and 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 0 sacks. I think Slovis is going to be fine. I think he can throw a really nice ball. He threw the one deep pass, and I think it was a nice pass. He's got a good arm. I think he's good. They just need to use it more. Let's see. Joe New is a super chatter. Says Gavin Bartholomew told me after game he injured LAC joint. So he was. Gavin Bartholomew left the game and came back after halftime, and a tracksuit and his left arm in a sling. So that does not look good for Gavin Bartholomew, and that's a tough one. That's a tough one. If they are without Gavin Bartholomew for any amount of time, it's gonna be a problem. We'll see what happens there. I think he actually got hurt a little bit in the Tennessee game. And so I think there was some question about whether or not he would even be available for the Western Michigan game. But to get hurt in this one, that's a problem. Let's see. Another super chatter just came in. Who we got down here? DJ Dennison. Appreciate you, DJ. I apologize if I missed your comment. I'll scroll through and see if you said something. But if you got something to say, we'll definitely get to it. If you have a comment or a question, if you want to make sure your comment gets read or your question gets answered, you can always be a super chatter. Click that $sign down at the bottom, and we appreciate your support, and we'll definitely ask answer your question or respond to your comment. Ed Mahoney started off the chat by saying, "Good evening, Chris. A win is a win. Moving on to the ACC schedule when every game will be critical. Not going to say positive or negative things about the game today, except it was a win." All right, appreciate that, Ed. Anthony Tennyson says, "Chris, I know you said the quarterback shouldn't play. If I knew that the offense was going to be this vanilla, I would have agreed with you. They didn't need to do anything spectacular to beat this team." Yeah, I think that's, I agree, Tony. I don't know. If you were going to play Slovis in this game for the whole game as they did, and throw 27 passes, work on things. Try to get work done. Try to accomplish more than just winning the game. Try to get yourself better prepared for the rest of the schedule. Get into a rhythm with the offensive line, with the receivers, and the tight ends. Hey, Carter Johnson catching a pass, huh? 1 catch for 41 yards. Nice catch and run there. Didn't necessarily look fast, but he had a lot of space in front of him and got down the sideline. Let's see. Patrick DeSantis says, pumped for this game against Georgia Tech. Yeah, that's going to be, that's a big one because let me see. First ACC game, right? And Georgia Tech should be a team that Pitt beats. They look pretty bad. See the update on that one. Georgia Tech. I forgot. Oh, they lost. They lost to UCF 27-10. That's right. 1-3 now for Georgia Tech. So that should be a good start to the ACC schedule for Pitt. RJCman38 says, is Rodney Hammond out for the year or just resting? I think he's hurt. It looked like he had a pretty bad lower body, I guess ankle injury probably, in the West Virginia game. And he hasn't played since then. We'll see when he's able to come back. I think he said on his Instagram or something that he was hoping to be back for Georgia Tech. We'll see. The way Izzy Abanikanda is running, they don't necessarily need him back right now, but having that two-headed monster would certainly make them dangerous. David Masenda says the delay in starting the Panther-Lair Post-Game tonight allowed him to unpack from his tailgate, eat dinner, and get more cold ones. Yeah, maybe we'll, noon games, maybe we'll just sort of tentatively plan for about 8:30 or so everybody has time to get home and settle in and then get talking. But, it did work out well. The evening games, 3:30 games, 8 o'clock games, we have to start pretty soon after the game ends or as soon as we can. But we'll take a little delay here before we got started, and I think it worked out good. We got a good crowd on the show tonight. Royce Beacom says, on Wednesday's edition of the Panther-Lair Show, I suggested adding bubble screens to the offense. Today, they ran 10-plus screens. You are welcome, Mr. Signetti. Hey, Royce, you suggested it, man. Christian Kosmak says, Bub Means may end up being an absolute game breaker by the end of the season. I think Bub Means and Konate Mumfield both, okay, can make plays. I think they can be big time playmakers for this offense. I think they can do it. I believe in both of those guys, and I think they've got that capability. I think they've got that ability to break plays. It just needs to happen. I kind of felt like the Western Michigan game was going to be a jumping off point, a real catalyst for Konate Mumfield because he made 3 big catches. Today, he caught 5 of 7 targets for 42 yards. He just wasn't given an opportunity to make much in the way of big plays. Bub Means was the same way. 8 targets, 6 catches, 38 yards. Just, screen. He might break one of those at some point. I want to see him get downfield. I want to see him catch intermediate passes. I want to see him go over the middle. I want to see him run a post. You know what I mean? A double move or something to get downfield and catch deeper passes. I think he's got that ability and he's got that size. He can run well enough. But he needs to do it. And to do it, he needs an opportunity to do it. And I think with plays like that and players like Mumfield and Means who are still new around here, you need to get them into that rhythm, and today was a good opportunity to do that. Last week would have been a good opportunity for it too. If Keaton Slovis played last week, I think they would have tried to attack more through the air than they did. I don't think there's any question about that. They took the approach they took at Western Michigan because they had to, because they had Nate Yarnell at quarterback. And it's not disrespect to him, it's the fact that he was brand new, brand new to playing. And so I think if they had Slovis available last week, they would have attacked more. And if they, and maybe even would have come into this week and carried it over. Or maybe they would have, backtracked to this game plan anyway because they felt good at what they got out of the first 3 games. But the fact that you didn't have Slovis last week, the fact that you didn't have Slovis in the second half of Tennessee, and that Slovis hasn't played since the first half of week 2, and the ACC schedule is sitting there 1 week from today, I think you needed to try to attack a little bit more just to get that feel. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. Didn't even try. Let's see. Benjamin Glazer says, I paid scant attention to today's game, spent most of it smoking chicken. Don't really have a question on play today, but watching the ACC teams makes me feel really good about conference play in the Coastal Division. Yeah, look, it doesn't look good. The ACC doesn't look good. Louisville won the battle of the former Charlie Strong teams, 41-3. They beat South Florida. Notre Dame went up and down the field on North Carolina, 45-32. Duke, first loss of the season at Kansas, 35-27. Miami fell by 2 touchdowns to Middle Tennessee at home. Where else in the Coastal? I think that's Georgia Tech, like I mentioned, lost to UCF. Virginia Tech lost on Thursday night. Virginia lost last night to Syracuse. Look, Miami is always going to be a problem. Miami is always going to be a threat. Because, we've seen bad Miami teams beat Pitt. We've seen bad Miami teams be tough outs. And I don't necessarily think this is a bad Miami team. I think they've obviously got issues. And benching Tyler Van Dyke seems like a real dicey proposition if you're Mario Cristobal. I'm not sure you want to go down that road because you might have opened a door that you can't close by doing that. But I'm still, I'm not going to count that as a should win or an easy one or anything like that. But these other 7 games in the ACC, I mean, realistically, and this is not to say that you can't lose. Okay, we know you can lose any game. Every game is a possible loss. There's no question about that. Who scares you on that list though? Of 7 games here, who scares you? Georgia Tech's not scary. Syracuse is good. They're 4-0. They're going to be 5-0. They play Wagner next week. But after Wagner, they have like NC State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Pitt, Florida State, Wake Forest. Like they realistically could go from 5-0 to 5-6. It's a very realistic possibility, or 5-0 to 6-5, or something like that. Or Syracuse, I think will be a tough game for Pitt, because I think they've been a tough game for Pitt for the most part since both teams joined the ACC. I think their defense is pretty stout, but I'm not too concerned about that group yet. Louisvile, I'm still trying to think, and maybe somebody could think about this. And as the game gets closer, I'm trying to think of like a comparison for Malik Cunningham in quarterbacks that Pitt has faced since Pat Narduzzi got to Pitt. I can't think of too many. I'm sure there have been a few guys along the way that are comparable to him, but I can't think of too many who actually had that level of success, or who kind of got over on Pitt. Quarterbacks like Malik Cunningham. North Carolina's defense is just non-existent, and if they don't score, they don't win. And even today, they scored 38 against Notre Dame. Is that what it was? The 32, excuse me. They scored 32, and that wasn't enough. They still lost by 13 points. Duke, might be on the slide now. Losing at Kansas by 8. But Duke was sort of like Syracuse, that they were I thought they might get to 4-0, but still, maybe only win 1 or 2 games after that. And so my point is, I mean, not to belabor this, but there's nobody on the schedule that scares you, and nobody on the schedule that should scare you. That doesn't mean that there's nobody on the schedule that can beat you, because they all can. But there's nobody on the schedule that's scary aside from Miami. I'm gonna hold out the possibility that this Middle Tennessee thing was just a blip on the radar, and they'll bounce back from it and go on a run and be really dangerous. I'll hold out for that possibility, but that's the only team that I really look at out of those 8 where I'm like, okay, that's a tough one. That's a dangerous one. And we'll see what these other 7 games look like. But, Virginia looks bad. I mean, really bad. Virginia Tech looks bad. It's just the Coastal doesn't look great. The ACC just looks just okay. Maybe Clemson's going to have a jumping off point here after beating Wake Forest. But, I mean, overall, this division at least is very winnable. And the conference is not too far behind on that front. The Panther Room says most people predicted Pitt to be 2-2 right now. We're 3-1 while battling a lot of injuries. I think Pitt's in a good position right now. The rest of the schedule looks very winnable if we can be healthy. Yeah, I don't know if most people predicted 2-2. I think a lot of people said they'd be happy with 3-1. Assuming that they would split the 2 Power 5 games. I think less happy with 3-1 if it meant they lost like Western Michigan again. But I think it's a perfectly fine place to be. At 3-1, 1 Power 5 win, 1 loss in overtime with your backup quarterback against a Power 5 team that's going to be in the top 10. And it's perfectly fine. And you'll probably be ranked 21 or 20 when the poll comes out tomorrow. So it's a perfectly fine place to be with all the opportunity and all the everything. The path lays out for you to have a lot of success here. Josh Newark says, thoughts on the onside kick? I totally support if your philosophy is to do it every time you're kicking at midfield, but we didn't do it against West Virginia, so why today? Additionally, did Sauls get injured? I mean, David Masenda follows up and says, Sauls seemed fine in the post-game. I was in 1B lot next to the other player families and saw Sauls walking down the street with his family. Yeah, I mean, Ben Sauls got hit and seemed a little shaken up on the play. Not sure what that was about. On the onside kick, I think there was some. I I think there was probably some miscommunication there. I don't think there was an intention to onside kick. Pat Narduzzi sort of said there was, sort of didn't. I mean, it's not entirely clear. I'm not sure how clear he'll ever make that or how much clarification he'll ever offer on that. But I think there was probably some miscommunication somewhere along there. Josh Newark also says the other takeaway, Pitt should run the table the rest of the year. They're a better team than everyone else on their schedule. I would think so. I am of the opinion that they should beat. They certainly can beat these other 8 teams. To get through 8 games in a row, would ultimately be 10 games in a row without any slip up. That's tough. Last year's team didn't win 10 games in a row. They didn't win 8 games in a row. It's tough to do that week after week after week and not have a game a game where you have a bunch of mistakes that cost you. It's tough to string that many wins together, but when you look at the opponents and what appears to be the caliber of this team, they should be able to go on a little run here. Let's see. Pitt 13-9 says a win is a win. 3-1 is something to be happy about, but I don't know how far this team can go with Frank's offense. In my opinion, he's terrible. It's so predictable. Okay. I hear predictable. I know. And everybody and their brother can sit in the stands and tell exactly what play is coming and all of this. But, I look at this offense. And again, Keaton Slovis threw for 300 yards in the first game, 200 yards in the first half of the second game. And I think, more to the point, aside from those numbers, I think all the complaints that are lodged about this offense, about being predictable, or it's just not a good offense, or it's stuck in the Stone Age, or it's 3 yards in the cloud of dust, my biggest contention is that I don't think we know. I don't know that we've seen this offense in its sort of final, fully developed form. Maybe the first half against Tennessee. Maybe the second half against West Virginia. Maybe it just shifts each week, which, I think makes sense. It could shift and be a different offensive approach each week, depending on your opponent. I understand that, but you think there's still a sort of a base identity and base philosophy, sort of as a foundation. And outside of just being a balanced offense that attempts to do a lot of different things, I'm not sure what that base identity and base foundation is. Because I don't think we've seen it. Because, again, second half of Tennessee, that's a unique situation when you're on your backup quarterback. Western Michigan game, that's a unique situation when you're your third string quarterback who, hasn't played in 3 years. And so I don't know. You say, I don't know how far we can get with Frank's offense. I don't know that we know what Frank's offense is. And so I think, you get to the Georgia Tech game. You've got Keaton Slovis. You're taking this game seriously. You've got a real opponent. Maybe you have Rodney Hammond, maybe not, whatever it is. You're going to have, ideally you'll have Jared Wayne back out there. You got Means and Mumfield. I don't know if you'll have Bartholomew or not, but you'll have something pretty close to a full complement of guys. And then we'll see what the offense looks like in that game. We'll see what the offense ends up being. Although I guess Georgia Tech gave up a ton of rushing yards, so maybe to UCF. So maybe it'll be maybe it'll just kind of look like that, where they'll just try to run the ball all the time. Let me see that box score and see if that's right. See if we can bring up Georgia Tech. And, UCF ran for 284 yards and threw for 49 yards, 8 of 17 passing. So maybe Frank Signetti will look at the Georgia Tech Central Florida game and just say, well, we're just going to run it again and just keep pounding it out there. But, to some extent, you have to do that, right? You have to adjust to your opponent. You have to take advantage of what your opponent's giving you and take advantage of your opponent's weaknesses. But at the same time, I think there has to be some kind of foundation for your offense of what you are and what you want to do and how you want to operate. And I'm not saying that they can't do certain things or that they can't be effective or they can't be good. I'm just saying that we haven't seen it. That I don't think we've seen what this Pitt offense really is. And until they do, it's hard for me to pass judgment on the offense and the design of the offense itself. Will Thompson says, how is Bub Means our third best receiver? I don't know. It's just what he is, you know? It's a guy. You have Jared Wayne, you have Kanate Mumfield, you have Bub Means. Everybody's top three receivers, and that's it. Peninsula P says Hammond and Izzy in the backfield will be deadly. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about those guys is, so if this is going to be the kind of running game where you have a lot of runs that get stuffed at the line of scrimmage or only get 2 yards because the offensive line doesn't open holes consistently, if it's going to be that kind of running game, you need backs who can find the hole when it actually is there and make something big happen out of it. And I think Abanikanda and Hammond both can do that. I think, they both can find the hole when it's there and exploit it and turn it into a big carry and a big gain when that opportunity presents itself. And so getting both of those guys on the field, and being able to go back and forth between them and have somebody, they're fresh by the fourth quarter, they're both fresh by the fourth quarter, that's really dangerous. And that could be, that could be an effective, attack for sure. Let's see. RJ Man 38 says, I'm not blaming the offensive coordinator anymore. It's all on Narduzzi. I blamed Sean Watson and Mark Whipple. I'm not blaming Frank Cignetti. It's all Narduzzi. Well, I'm glad you didn't blame, I guess you blamed Sean Watson for, the most effective, productive rushing offense in school history. I'm sure you blamed Mark Whipple for the most productive scoring and total yards offense in school history. And you can blame Pat Narduzzi for the, I don't know, whatever you think. Let's see. David Allen says, your view of a, quote, balanced offense is not shared by other college football. 83 passes and 59 runs is way too much running in modern college football. I don't think that's true. I don't like. I know we believe that it's just pass all the time, but I bet if you went through most of the effective offenses in Power 5, you'd find that they have something approaching that kind of a balance, if not even more balance between run and pass. 83 pass and 59 run in the first 2 games is not all that balanced, and it's pretty heavy to the run, right? I mean, that's what 142 plays? 142 plays, 83 out of 142 plays were pass calls and 59 were runs. I mean, that's less than half of the plays, right? So I don't think the majority of Power 5 college football programs, particularly those that run pro-style offenses, are, handing the ball off on less than half of their snaps. Panther Room says, it doesn't look like Frank has any idea what type of offense he wants to run yet. It's not a good position to be in, I must admit. Well, I don't know that it's he doesn't know what offense he wants to run. I think he's had, again, his starting quarterback gets knocked out at halftime of one game, and he's got a third-string quarterback in the next game. So, I mean, for 1.5 of the games, he's, working with a considerably different personnel than he planned for all summer and all spring and all winter. Considerably different personnel than he worked with all spring and all summer and all winter. I don't think that... I don't think it's a matter of Frank Cignetti not knowing what kind of offense he wants. I think it's a matter of him just not really having an opportunity to show it consistently yet. Steak on the Grill says, anyone else wish they had Devonshire returning kicks, not Israel Abanikanda? Too many unnecessary hits to running back 1. Yeah, I absolutely agree about that. I would get Izzy Abanikanda out of there. You want to put Vincent Davis back there. You want to put Kanate Mumfield back there. You want to put MJ Devonshire back there. You want to put AJ Woods back there. Pick one of your fast guys, put him back there. You want to put Jay Wabuko back there. I don't care. Who cares about redshirting anymore? Put whoever you want to put back there. Do not put the guy who is already touching the ball 20 other times in the game and getting 177 yards, 196 yards of total offense and scoring 4 touchdowns. Don't put him back there on kick returns. There's no need to do that. And he's great. Yeah, he got a kick return for a touchdown last year against Virginia. Great. I bet there are other guys who could do it too. There's no need to put him in. There's no need to put him in that situation. Let's see. Scott Eisenberg said, I wish they had tried to get some underneath throws going, but I don't think the offense is that concerning, to be honest. The defense and the penalties, on the other hand, they can't keep having these mental errors. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I want to see more of the offense. I want to see the offense do more things and be more multiple, like they say that they are. I actually believe that they can be. I think they've got the personnel to do it, and I think Frank Cignetti's smart enough to do it. I think they can be multiple and do a lot of different things. Attack downfield, use the sidelines, go underneath, attack the middle of the field. The defense needs to clean it up. There's 4 games now. It's 4 games where the defense needs to be sharper. All right, sharper than they have been. And I don't know what it is. Some of the presumed strengths of this team, the offensive line and the defensive line, even though there have been injuries, and the offensive line is missing their center due to injury, they didn't have their intended starting right tackle, although Gabe Hoy made his debut today. Thought it was interesting that Carter Warren left the game at a certain point. And I don't know if it was just a matter of getting Branson Taylor a lot of work, which he did, or if there was something up with Warren. I'm not entirely sure what was happening there, but never mind that. Owen Drexel's out for a while. Gabe Hoy just played for the first time in this game. And then on the defensive side, Desmond Alexander's been out since the West Virginia game. Haba Baldonado hasn't played some in the Western Michigan game, came out and didn't play today. Deion Hayes is going to be out for a while. Devin Danielson's going to be out for a while. There have been injuries, but I don't think either one of those lines, offensive or defense, has played up to the expectations we had for those groups coming into the season, where they were thought to be strengths of the team. They haven't. I don't think they've been. I don't think they've played as well as they need to play. And I think the defense as a whole needs to clean it up. You're 4 games in now. Some of your inexperienced guys, your Bengali Kamara and Shane Simon and Tyler Wiltz and Solomon DeShields, they need to get better. It's time is over. The time of them being inexperienced is starting to pass. And I don't want to say that, you don't want to put unrealistic expectations on them to just, they need to be All-Americans right away, but they need to be better. They need to improve. And they need to take some big steps forward as you go into ACC play. And like who said it, Scott Eisenberg said, they need to cut down on those mental errors. Pitt 13-9 says Brandon Marion could have done a better job. I'm still shopping around for a new offensive coordinator. Don't judge me. Yeah, well, first of all, you mean Brendan Marion. Second of all, no. Patrick Broderick says, I agree with Steak about the top running back returning kickoffs. He's good, but he's not Devin Hester good. We could get 95% as good with 0% of a risk of a star running back getting hurt. Yep, I agree. There's no reason to put him back there. Let's see. Peninsula P says our offensive line isn't the best at pass protection, and our defense has been less than stellar. Maybe that's why we are running the ball so much, fewer hits on the quarterback, and more time of possession. Well, I think what was I going to say? I think they do want to be balanced, right? And I think they want to establish the run. And I think they want to be able to use the run to set up play action and attack downfield that way, which I don't think is all that atypical in college football. I mean, particularly, I think you can look around Power 5. Sure, there are a lot of offenses that are running different schemes, but I think pro-style offenses still have a home and still show up in a lot of places. For the last 3 years, we watched Mark Whipple throw it nonstop. And when they did try to run it, it was half-hearted. There wasn't a lot of conviction behind it. And there was not really an attempt to trying to establish a running game that could be a threat. It was just drop back, drop back, drop back, drop back, drop back. Well, I think we all are having a period of adjustment to what it's looking to getting used to an offense that actually tries to run the ball and tries to commit to running the ball and tries to build off an established running game. And so that's what I think we're looking at now. And I think that's, it does look very different from what they did in the past, at least the last 3 years. And I don't think they want to just be only run, but they are going to run it a lot. Alan Daniels says, are you going to get the new commit on the phone? Well, I've been talking to you guys, but obviously it looks like Dadrian Zipper did announce his commitment to Pitt. That was probably at some point in the last hour. I think he was going to announce somewhere around 8:30 or 8:40. I don't even know what time he was going to announce. But I've been doing this thing, so I haven't been able to talk to him. We did say that, I talked a lot about it on Thursday on the Morning Pit. I talked about the prospect of getting Dadrian Zipper as a commitment. And I think Jim Hammett is trying to get him on the phone as we speak. Hopefully he's able to do that. And then when we get done here, we can get those articles out. Let's see. Adam Gordon says, I don't really see a scary game. Maybe North Carolina until Miami. Do you think we will be favored and win out? So I, in my prediction section in the 3-2-1 column yesterday on Panther-Lair.com, I predicted that Pitt would be favored in at least 7 of their remaining games, with Miami really being the exception. As it looks right now, I don't know who you would pick other than Miami that you would say they'll be favored over Pitt. As it looks right now. Things could change in a month. We get a very different perspective on things by the time Pitt is going to North Carolina, or by the time Pitt is playing Syracuse or something like that. We could have a very different perspective on things. But right now, I don't know which team you pick, home or away, that you would say they'll be favored over Pitt, other than maybe Miami. Let's see. Scrolling through. Talk is Pitt says Syracuse has not been an issue for us in over 20 years. The thing is, though, Syracuse has been kind of a pain in the butt for Pitt. In 2012, they beat Pitt. 2013 by 1 point. I always get these mixed up. 2012 and 2013 were both 1-point games, and Pitt won one. I think Pitt lost in 12 and won in 13. No. Doggone it. Because both games were up there. I think Pitt lost in 2012 and won up there in 2013. But either way, they were 1-point games. One of them, Aaron Donald blocked an extra point, and that was the separation there. 2014, Pitt won rather comfortably. 2015, Pitt went up to the Carrier Dome. You remember, it was Pat Narduzzi's first year. They had to run. They ran a fake punt. And I think it was Ryan Winslow threw a pass to Matt Galambos to set up a super long field goal from Chris Blewett to win that game. 2016 was a ridiculous 76-61 game. 2017, they lost up there. Pitt lost up there. 2018, they went into overtime at Heinz Field. Syracuse was ranked at the time. Pitt ended up winning in overtime. 2019 Syracuse game, I don't have a memory of. That game was up there. I think it ended up being close. Yeah, Pitt actually took a fairly sizable lead and then sort of blew it and ended up being like really close, like a 1-score game or maybe like a 10-point game or something. 2020, the game was here. That was in the COVID year, but I think it was like a 23-20 game or something. It wasn't really a blowout. And then last year, they were playing sort of shorthanded. Guys were sick. That was the regular season finale. They were just trying to stay healthy. Syracuse has played Pitt pretty tough for the most part over the last 10 years. Now, they've only won 2 games since 2012 against Pitt, but Syracuse has played Pitt pretty tough over those years. And I apologize if we were buffering there, but Syracuse has been a little bit of a problem. John Christofich says Hakeem Williams gave Florida State his verbal commitment. Yep, he did that yesterday. We talked a lot about that on the Morning Pit on Thursday. And I hope you guys have audio because it looks like we are buffering here, so I apologize. I want to get through some of these comments and questions if we can. Christian Kozmak was a super chatter. He says, it's hard to be confident, but it's easy to be optimistic. The offense in the first half against Tennessee and a couple drives against West Virginia were electric. Everything else willfully bland. Well, yeah, and in the first, the second half against West Virginia and the first half against Tennessee, I thought they did adjust the offense and did some different things. I think... But so I think they did some different things in the second half against West Virginia, and they did some different things in the first half against Tennessee, but we never really saw that string together. You know what I mean? We never saw that, like, any kind of consistency, because Slovis was out by the second half against Tennessee. Slovis didn't play against Western Michigan. And then this game, they chose to not try to attack. So I think there's it's still... We're waiting to see. We're waiting to see. Let's see. Cripes. There's all kinds of comments. You guys talking a lot about the offense. Let's see here. Roy Speakham says, can we really favor Pitt in all of the remaining games in light of the injury problems and unrealized potential on both sides of the ball, regardless of injury? So the injury problems, I think the biggest ones to be concerned about right now are when is Rodney Hammond going to be back? I think, Haba Baldonado didn't play in this game. Deslin Alexandra did not play in this game. I would expect both of those guys probably to be back next week. I don't know when Rodney Hammond will be back. I would expect Jared Wayne, I think, to be back next week. Who else really are we looking at? I don't think Nate Temple is going to be back soon. I would expect Haba Baldonado, Deslin Alexandra, and Marquez Williams all on defense, all to play next week. I would not expect Dayon Hayes or Devin Danielson to be ready to go, or Nate Temple. You're talking about your second team defensive lineman. On the offensive side, I would expect Jared Wayne to be back next week. I don't know when Rodney Hammond will be back. I think Owen Drexel will be out for a little while. So they'll get a good number of guys back. Gavin Bartholomew is another one I'm not sure about. He might be out for a little while, but they'll get a good number of guys back. They should have them back by next week or the week after at the latest. And then you're pretty close to full strength. You're going to have a few guys out, but you're pretty close to full strength. Close enough that you should be able to play well, and execute and win some of these games. So, I hear your point about how can you favor Pitt all that much if there are these injury situations, but I think they're going to get most of them resolved by the time, by in the next couple of weeks with a few outstanding guys who are probably going to be out sort of longer term. I think Rodney Hammond is a big one we're watching. Jared Wayne is a big one we're watching. I would guess Baldonado and Alexandra and Williams could have played today if need be. So I would think most of those guys will be back. All right, clearing an hour here. I think we've said all we need to say. Look, the bottom line with the offense, it comes down to this. Let's see what it looks like. I don't really believe we've seen a full game of this offense as it's going to be, understanding that there are going to be variations and adjustments each week. I don't think we've seen a full game of this offense yet for a variety of reasons. Let's see what it looks like against Georgia Tech. Although, again, if Georgia Tech is susceptible to the run, they're going to run, which makes sense. If you can run on a team, you should. Going forward from there, we'll see what they do when they need to pass. We'll see what kind of a passing game they try and set up. And we'll find out. It's sort of a wait and see. It's a weird position to be in a third of the way through the season, and you don't really know what the offense is because you haven't really seen it. So, we'll find out. And that's kind of my final thought on the offense is, look, I like a lot of the personnel. I think Slovis can be really good. I think Abanikanda is really good. I think Mumfield and Means can break out. I think Wayne is really reliable. I think Bartholomew, when he's out there, is a really good player. And this line, just got to keep getting better and keep working at it, I guess. But But we'll find out how it all comes together here in this crucial 8-game stretch, which is really, this is the season. This is the real season right here. These are the real games. These are the games that matter, and these are the games that are ultimately going to determine how this season is viewed when it's all said and done. So we'll see what they can come up with. Listen, hit that subscribe button while you're here. Little subscribe button right there will get you locked into our YouTube channel. You can turn on notifications and get an alert every time we go live, whether it's for a post-game show or the Wednesday night show on 8:30 on Wednesday nights that we do here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You also get a notification when we post our morning Pitt videos. We do that Monday through Friday, every day of the week, every morning. Well, not every day of the week, but every day of the weekdays, Monday through Friday, we post a new video. Just talking about whatever's going on in Pitt sports, topics, themes, whatever's on my mind in terms of Pitt stuff. Usually 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long it takes to talk about whatever's going on. So you definitely want to check those videos out. Like I say, a new one comes out every day. It gives you a little Pitt talk each morning right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So click the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. And that way you will never miss any of those videos. Also, like this video. I always appreciate that. It makes me feel good inside when I see all the likes on there. So click like on this video, and then make sure you tune in to Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com for all the best Pitt sports coverage, football, basketball, recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com. And, of course, message boards where you can talk about it with other Pitt fans. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Pitt 45, Rhode Island 24 at Acrisure Stadium. Panthers are 3-1. It's time for the ACC schedule. We will have it covered for you right there at Panther-Lair.com and right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So thanks to everybody tuning in tonight. Thanks to everybody who watched it later in the night or on Sunday or whenever you check this out. Thanks for listening to the podcast and doing all of those things. We will talk to you again Monday morning for the newest